Okay, we're going to call the Committee of the Whole meeting to order. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Trustee Brewer? Here. Trustee Grant? Here. Trustee Jones? Trustee Tate? Trustee Todd? Here. Trustee Peacock? Here.
Okay, we're going to skip down to presentations. Item number 4. We're starting with our village engineer, Mr. Jim Zarnik. Did you get my? Oh, okay.
Test, test, test. Okay. Good evening, everybody. So what we're going to be talking about today is the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District Infiltration and Inflow Control Program. The MWRD is the organization that takes the wastewater from all of Sauk Village and treats it. And this is a compliance update. This is actually an update to a presentation that I gave about 3 years ago when this program first came out. So what we'll be talking about today, first of all, is background on the MWRD's watershed management ordinance. Then we'll get into the wastewater infiltration and inflow definitions and sources. We'll talk about public and private sewers, the short-term program requirements, the long-term program requirements, penalties for non-compliance, the proposed sewer improvement program, and finally the proposed sewer charge ordinance amendment. So first of all, some background on the ordinance. This is the MWRD Watershed Management Ordinance, or WMO, which was adopted on July 10th, 2014. Article 8 of that references the Infiltration and Inflow Control Program. And the scope and goals of Article 8 are, first of all, to prevent sanitary sewer overflows and basement backups for the communities that discharge to MWRD, which includes Sauk Village. It also helps the MWRD comply with their wastewater treatment plant discharge permit conditions. And finally, it reduces the wet weather flows to MWRD and their wastewater treatment plants. So what is wastewater? Simply, it's the used water that is directed to the sanitary sewer system from sources such as toilets, sinks, showers and bathtubs, dishwashers, clothes washers, room drains, also commercial waste, restaurant wash water, grease, oil, etc., and also industrial waste from manufacturing processes and waste products. So basically everything that goes down the drain. We need to talk about the difference between public sewers and private sewers. So a public sector sewer is the portion of the sanitary sewer system that's owned and maintained by a public agency. For Sauk Village, this includes all the main sewers, the manholes, and appurtenances. It includes the service connection at the main sewer for each lateral sewer. Now, on the private side, the private sector sewers are the portion of the sanitary sewer system that's owned and maintained by private owners. For Sauk Village, this includes the service lateral from each building up to the connection with the main sewer. So, we need to talk about infiltration and inflow. What is that? It's abbreviated I&I, and it's stormwater or groundwater flow that enters the sanitary sewer system, which should not occur. I&I often overloads the capacity of the sanitary sewer system. It's separated into two different components. There's inflow, which is stormwater that enters the sanitary sewer system through downspouts, sump pumps, manholes, and catch basins, everything that's above ground. And infiltration is the groundwater that enters through defective pipes, manholes, or building connections, everything that's below ground. So this is a representation of a house on the right side of the diagram, and then everything in kind of the yellowish color is the public sanitary sewer that carries the wastewater, and everything in blue is the public storm sewer. So we're going to talk about sources of infiltration and inflow. And first we'll talk about the public property defects that lead to infiltration and inflow. So within the public system, you could have a cross connection between the storm sewer and the sanitary sewer. And you can see that pointed out with the red arrow there. So if there happens to be a connection between a storm sewer and a sanitary sewer, when there's a lot of flow in the storm sewer, they can back up into the sanitary sewer, and that's not a good thing. Another defect is an interconnect between a catch basin and a public sanitary sewer. That's, again, a connection that should not be there. There can also be a defect, which would be a deteriorated manhole. So here you can see a crack in the manhole, and that would allow groundwater to get into that manhole and into the sanitary sewer system. There could be a leaky sewer lateral connection where the private connection comes out and enters into the public sewer. If that is leaky, then that would allow groundwater in as well. There could be a leaking manhole cover. There could be a crack or a broken pipe, which would allow flow in. And there are also private property defects. So not exactly what's owned by the Village of Sauk Village, but owned by the individual residences. So there could be a cross connection in the foundation drain. So a lot of houses, especially those with basements, they have foundation drains that carries the groundwater away from the house into a sump pit, which then pumps it hopefully into the storm sewer system or over land. If that's directly connected to the sewer lateral, then that would get into the public sanitary sewer system, and again, that's an illegal connection. There could be an uncapped cleanout. Cleanout is usually over the sewer lateral so that if there are roots or other blockages, then a plumber can get in there and rot it out. So if there's no cap, then stormwater can just flow right into that lateral, and then again get into the public sanitary sewer system and overwhelm it. There can also be roots that are intruded into that lateral, which would cause a leaky connection. And there could just be a broken sewer lateral, which would allow the flow in directly. And then you could also have your downspouts directly tied into your lateral. So again, that stormwater flow, that's something that you don't want in your sanitary sewer system. So all these are sources of infiltration and inflow.
So Jim, sorry, before you move on, I just do have a quick question. A storm sewer cross connection, that should never happen to begin with, should it?
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, so the only way it would have is if a homeowner or a private sector entity had an issue and the contractor they had to do the work did something incorrectly, or to the point that it was initially implemented, someone did something against code. Yes?
Yes and no. Back in the day, we're talking 50 years ago, there was not so much a separation between the two systems. It was almost encouraged to have stormwater get into the sanitary sewer system just to get the water away from the residences. As time has gone by and we've developed better engineering standards, then the codes have changed and those connections are no longer allowed. So sometimes it's just a matter of timing. What decade was your house built in? And there are also sump pump connections, which are really the worst. So when you've got a sump pump, that sump pump should discharge to the storm sewer system, or it should discharge to your backyard, your front yard, and that flow should just be directed to the storm sewer system. But sometimes you've got that connected directly to a lateral, which then goes into the sanitary sewer system, and that very quickly overwhelms the system. So, but again, you know, with older homes, that was commonly connected to the lateral. And then this is an animation of how you can get basement backup generated through infiltration and inflow. So on the left here, you've got a cross-sectional view of a house, and the basement is kind of the bottom portion of that. And then to the right, with that half-filled pipe you can see in brown, that's the sanitary sewer. And then to the right of that is the storm sewer. So the storm sewer should be collecting nothing but the rainwater, and the sanitary sewer should be getting nothing but the wastewater. So what happens is, let's say you've got a heavy rainfall event. So you've got water that's coming down onto the ground, it seeps into the ground, it gets into the catch basins, which is okay, it gets into the storm sewer system, that's good, and it also seeps into the ground and goes into the footing drains, which then should be properly pumped into the storm sewer system. So what will happen is that storm sewer will fill up in a heavy rainfall event, and the flow will be carried away, and that's all fine. But if there are defects in the system, if you've got leaky joints, if you've got cracks in the sewer lateral, then that enables the stormwater flow to get into the sanitary sewer. And what happens is that sanitary sewer then fills to the level of the storm sewer system, and that backs up into the lateral, which then backs up into the basement and floods the basement with wastewater. That's not where you want the wastewater. So that's why this is also critical, is that if we could seal and repair the sanitary sewer system, disconnect the illegal connections, then something like this would not happen. Okay, so what is the MWRD requiring the village to complete by 2019? So first of all, they wanted us to do a condition assessment to identify what's known as high-risk areas of the system that need to be completed by 2019, and it needed to be at least 10% of the entire sanitary sewer system. And the good news is that check, it's done. We've done that. We'll talk about it in a few minutes. Next, they want us to undertake rehabilitation work for high-risk defects identified or included in a capital improvement plan. And then they also want us to develop a long-term operation and maintenance plan. We'll talk about that stuff in a second. And then finally, develop a private sector program. So, communities must identify high-risk areas. What are those? High-risk areas are defined as any of these 5 categories. First of all, areas with sanitary sewer overflows and or basement backups, areas upstream of sewer overflows and basement backups. There are also sub-basins known to surcharge. There are areas with excessive wet weather flows and or excessive lift station pumpage. And finally, they could be areas with system deficiencies that could result in system failure. So specifically for Sauk Village, there are 2 manholes in town that have periodic sanitary sewer overflows. And per previous flow metering that was conducted in years past, which encompasses about 2/3 of the village, all those areas have excessive wet weather flows. So there's quite a bit in the system that would be considered a high-risk area. But we had to start somewhere. So this is the area that was designated as the high-risk area. Again, it's 10% of the Sauk Village sewer system. And you can see in that rectangular box, I kind of enclosed the 2 manholes that are subject to sanitary sewer overflows. So just so you get an idea, this is generally from 218th up to 215th, and then on the west from Jeffrey, on the east to Merrill. So that's where we started. So what do we need to do within this high-risk area that we've identified per the MWRD? So in all high-risk areas, we're required to clean and televise all the public sewers, inspect all the manholes, smoke test all the public sewers, dye test the sewers in the high-risk area where smoke testing finds possible cross connections with the storm system. The sewers cross under areas that are subject to ponding or downspouts discharge underground. And we'll define what all that means. And then there's a condition assessment standardization that's been developed. So uniform inspection standards that are based on current technology. And that's associated with a defect coding system that's established by NASCO, which is the National Association of Sewer Service Companies. And that enables a common coding system that everybody uses for defects in main sewer or manholes, etc. So the MWRD requires us to use that system. And there's this grading system that's been established for these three categories. There's a sewer pipeline assessment and certification program, the manhole assessment and certification program, and the lateral assessment and certification program. And our company has two NASCO certified employees, Rodney Filippi and Martin King. You might have seen these gentlemen around the neighborhood. They've been doing a lot of the inspection work and a lot of this work for a number of our other clients. So, sewer cleaning and televising, what is that? First of all, cleaning removes debris that prevents televising and contributes to sanitary sewer overflows and basement backups. Televising identifies the defects in the sewers that contribute to sanitary sewer overflows and basement backups. And let's break it down more specifically. For the sewer cleaning, that's performed in preparation for the sewer televising inspections. And it's typically performed with a high pressure sewer jet nozzle. It removes dirt, debris, and grease. Cleans it all out. And then we follow that with sewer televising, where we use closed circuit television cameras that are inserted in the sewer lines and record the internal pipe conditions. So this televising can help identify cracks, voids, roots, intrusions, breaks, all the defects that might be found in the sewer pipe. Manhole inspections. These are utilized to identify the structural defects that contribute to infiltration and inflow. They provide an inventory of the structure types and construction materials used. They identify new manholes are buried or missing manholes to update the sewer atlases that we have. And they also identify leaking frames, lids, walls, pipe connections, and determine manhole depth and location. And this usually leads to manhole rehabilitation contracts. Another tool we use is smoke testing. This is a cost-effective method to immediately identify large sewer system defects that contribute to significant infiltration and inflow. The defects typically found include downspouts, sump pumps that are illegally connected, area drains, leaking mains and services, and cross-connected or directly connected catch basins and storm sewers. So again, we've done this on the north side of town. Maybe this is in your neighborhood, you've seen smoke coming out of the ground. It's not a fire, it's the smoke testing that we're doing. No. You need special equipment for it. We also do dyed water flooding. This helps to pinpoint and quantify large sources of I&I, and it's typically done in conjunction with the cleaning and televising. And it's a follow-up to smoke testing or building inspection. So you put this very powerful dye and a stream of water. It goes into the storm sewer system. And if you can see that coming into the sanitary sewer system anywhere, then you know that you've got a leak.
So that means you guys have that special stuff to turn the river green.
That's us. We go downtown every year and do it. Now the MWRD identifies what they call high priority deficiencies. These are things that absolutely have to be fixed. And for a mainline sewer, these have to be addressed within 3 years of identification. So remember we talked about that NASCO scale. And if you've got a grade 4 or 5 defect, then that's considered a high priority deficiency. So for a mainline sewer, this would be a multiple hinged fracture, if you can see the soil through the pipe, if you see heavy roots or a large offset in the joint, that would be grade 4 or 5 defect. For manholes, it has to be also addressed within 3 years of identification. Again, that's a NASCO grade 4 or 5 defect. And for a manhole, we're talking about a poorly fitting lid, an open pick hole, or a hole in the manhole wall. And then for cross connections, that's where you've got a direct storm to sanitary sewer connection or high flow indirect connection. That has to be addressed within 1 year. The reason for that is because it's such a large contributor to infiltration and inflow. And then there are private sector, low cost, high priority deficiencies, and those must be addressed within 1 year of finding them. So here we're talking about downspouts that are directly connected to the sanitary sewer system, which are relatively easy, inexpensive to disconnect. Missing cleanout caps and defective cleanout caps, usually our inspectors just, when they find those, they'll just replace them because, you're talking about like, $40 a cap or something like that. So it just takes care of that source as soon as we find it. So now we'll talk about the results from our high-risk area investigation and what our recommendations are for fixing the system. So first of all, we did sewer cleaning and televising. We did this for 17,277 feet of sanitary sewer that ranged from 8-inch pipe to 12-inch pipe. And then within everything that we cleaned and televised, 8,200 feet of sanitary sewer is classified as grade 4 or 5 defects on the NASCO scale. So in other words, 49% of the sewers need to be repaired. So kind of a high number. And then the most cost-effective repair technique is called cured in place pipelining, or CIPP. So for this, you don't need to do any excavations, and then you create a liner, which is a pipe within a pipe. And that gives you a result, a product that has over a 50-year design life, so it's long-lasting. It's free of any joints or cracks like the original pipe that could potentially leak. It improves sewer flow, it eliminates sources of infiltration and inflow, and it halts the intrusion of roots into the piping. So we've been doing this for years. Contractors have been doing it for years. We've been recommending it. Very good results. So our estimated cost for doing this pipelining just within the high-risk area is $319,000. Next, we'll go to the manhole inspections. Bless you. So we inspected 75 manholes within that high-risk area, and we found 108 defects that we classify as grade 4 or 5 on the NASCO scale in 61 different manholes. So 81% of the manholes need to be repaired. And we could use a variety of repair techniques. We could clean the manhole to remove the debris. It's fairly easy to do. We could grout and seal the manhole walls, more expensive. Or we could replace and seal the frame and cover, which again isn't very expensive. Our estimated cost for the manhole repairs, just in the high-risk area, is $191,000. Then we did smoke testing. We tested the same linear footage, 17,277 feet. We found defects in 53 of the 76 pipe segments, or 70% of the total pipe segments. And here, we need to establish ownership, a demarcation of ownership. So on the private side, there were 42 cleanouts, laterals, and private manholes that had defects. With the village-owned system, we found 51 manholes and cross connections with catch basins. And as far as repairs go, on the private side, those will be addressed later in the village's private sector plan. And with the village, the project cost is included already in the cost for the manhole repair. So everything that we found there was within that $191,000 that we're talking about. We also did external property inspections. And the purpose was to identify potential cross connections where stormwater can enter the sanitary sewer system. 383 properties were inspected, and there are 240 potential cross connections. These could be driveway and area drains, window wells and downspouts that drain to the ground that might or might not go to the sanitary sewer system. And so approximately 195 properties will require additional follow-up inspection to confirm or deny that they're connected. So these further investigations will be addressed in the village's private sector plan. Okay, so we've done all this work. Now let's talk about everything that has to be submitted to the MWRD. So we've been submitting annual reports to them since 2015. So this is what we need to submit moving forward. So this year, going to 2020, we need to submit the short-term requirement annual summary report, which is a summary of the high-risk area investigation that we've conducted and our progress towards long-term goals. We need to submit the status of high-priority defects form and an updated sewer map showing the locations of the condition assessment activities performed in the previous year. And then moving forward, 2020 and after, we need to submit the long-term O&M operation and maintenance program and summary report, the status of the high-priority deficiencies form, a capital improvement program showing where the high-priority deficiencies will be addressed, a list of the property addresses where private sector sources have been identified but not corrected, and finally a schedule for correcting the private sector infiltration and inflow sources. Okay, so what if the village just says, you know what, we're not doing any of this. We don't have money, forget you guys. There are some consequences. So the first consequence is a loss of eligibility for funding assistance by the MWRD. And 3 years ago when I gave this presentation, I told you there was none, there still is none. So the MWRD, in their defense, has actually been fairly generous in recent years. They've opened up grant programs on the stormwater side. It's possible they can do this on the sanitary side as well. So if that funding were to become available and the village is not in compliance, then they would be eligible. The MWRD could also report non-compliance to the IEPA or US EPA. And then finally, I think, which is the most realistic consequence, is a denial of a watershed management permit for qualified sewer construction. Now, what does that mean? So for any business that comes into Sauk Village that either wants to develop a property or redevelop a property, they need to submit a permit to the MWRD. And if the village is not in compliance, then they will deny that permit, potentially. So that would shut down all development in Sauk Village. That's a bad consequence. So we would recommend that the village remain in compliance with the MWRD. So the MWRD wants us to move forward. So we've done this inspection of the high-risk area. They want us to continue doing inspection work. So what they're recommending is to continue to do 10% of the system per year. But we kind of backed them, in a corner and said, okay, really, what do we absolutely have to do? And they said, well, 2% of the system is the minimum that we would accept. So this is the inspection program that we would recommend based on those numbers. In 2019, we would inspect a bunch of manholes. Manholes are relatively cheap to inspect, and we could do 50% of the village's entire system. So you add 50% to the 10% that's done already, we would be up to 60% of the system. In 2020, we would smoke test sewers, and we would do 25% of the system. In 2021, we would do some more cleaning and televising. That's relatively expensive, so we would do 10% in 1 year, and then the following year, we would do another 15% of the system. So we would be up to 25% of the system by 2022. The annual inspection cost for this work is about $60,000 per year. Now let's get into the proposed sewer improvement program. So we inspect the sewers and we come back with recommendations to fix the system to get the stormwater out of the public sanitary sewers. So Sauk Village can't afford to do all the work at once, and this is typical for all the municipalities, right? It's just, you know, the village doesn't have a ton of money just lying around waiting to spend. So what we do is we break the work into a more affordable components, which we call a capital improvement plan. So, you know, we target, okay, we're going to do this percentage of the work this year and this percentage next year. And so what we're recommending is a 5-year plan. So we'll do the 5 years of sewer system inspections, and then we'll compile a list of recommended repairs. So recall that we did that inspection work in the high-risk area. So based on that, we're able to make some calculations of, okay, well, how many defects can we expect to find in so many manholes? And how many defects would we expect to find in so many sewers? And then we've got cost estimates for that work as well. So now we can come up with, okay, what would be the relative cost that we could expect to find for everything that we're inspecting. So to repair 25% of the village's sewers and 50% of the village's manholes would give us a total project cost of $1.8 million. Again, very large dollar amount. So what we would recommend is that the village apply for an IEPA low interest loan. And if you remember, this is similar to the water treatment plant improvements project that we did not too long ago. And what you do is it's like a mortgage. You spread out the cost over a term of 20 years, and it makes the project more affordable. And we've had tons of communities take advantage of this funding. You're never going to find a lower interest rate or more favorable conditions. So per the current loan terms offered by the IEPA, the village would be eligible for a discounted interest rate of 1.33%. Very nice, and up to $500,000 of loan forgiveness. I won't even say up to. You would just get the $500,000 of loan forgiveness. So that would result in an annual payment to the IEPA of $72,000 per year for a term of 20 years. Now, there are going to be some additional program costs in addition to what I just talked about. These are much more minor components, though. But just so that you recognize moving forward that, you know, there's still going to be some compliance costs. So for fiscal year 2019, we're going to have to develop that long-term operation and maintenance program and the private sector program. And then compliance management activities like doing the annual reporting, again, not that big of a cost. And for 2020 and beyond, we need to start implementing that long-term operation and maintenance program, including the capital improvement plan. We need to implement the private sector program, and again, continue with the compliance management. So I'll probably be back in 3 years giving you another compliance update presentation. We can talk more about that later. So how do we pay for all this, right? That's the big question. So one avenue that the village is proposing is to update the sewer charge ordinance. And this would fund the inspection and repair costs mandated by the MWRD. And it also accounts for inflationary cost increases to fund the sewer system operational costs. So like anything else, cost of living increases every year. So this would, I guess, account for that so that the village has enough money to pay for the increases in cost to operate the system year by year. And it's important to note that the sewer charges have not increased since 2010, so it's been a while. And there are three components to the sewer charge. There's a user charge, a monthly maintenance charge, and a monthly surcharge, and we'll talk about each one of those. So first of all, the user charge, and that's a charge per 1,000 gallons of water used. So the more water you use, the more you pay, the less water you use, the less you pay. So the current rate is 99 cents per 1,000 gallons of water that's used, and the proposed rate would increase that to $1.25 per 1,000 gallons. And as we move forward, there would be a 5 cent per 1,000 gallon increase per year through 2023 to account for inflation. The second component is the monthly maintenance charge. The current ordinance names this as a debt service fee, but the revised ordinance would change the name to a monthly maintenance charge that's really more appropriately named because it accounts for the operational expenses. The current rate is $15.50 per month. It's a flat rate per user, and the proposed rate is $16.25 per month. And like the user charge, there would be a 25 cent per year increase through 2023 to account for inflation. And then it's also important to note that mobile home parks will be charged per lot rather than per subdivision as they are now. So these increases are projected to generate an additional $104,000 per year to fund the sewer system operations moving forward. The final component of the sewer charge is the monthly surcharge. Now this is a new charge to fund the sewer system work, and the proposed rate is $1.50 per month per user. And this would also include a 25 cent per year increase through 2023 to account for inflation. This is proposed to generate $60,000 per year to fund the mandatory MWRD inspection work and also to pay for future debt service on that IEPA loan. So, to wrap it up,
I'm sorry, I'm going to jump in here again, Jim, sorry. We just said that the last one was going to generate about $60,000 a year, but I thought we said the low interest loan would be about $72,000 a year, so we're already talking about a deficit of $12,000.
yeah, but it matters on timing, right? So we're going to do the inspection work for 5 years and then stop doing the inspection work. So that $60,000 is not going to be a charge that the village would have to pay after 5 years.
Yeah, but even after that 5 years, we're only talking about 25% of the system in total, aren't we? We're not talking about 100% of the system.
Right.
Another 5 years. We're still going to have to worry about the other 75% of the system.
That's true, and it's going to require the MWRD to buy off on this plan that we're proposing because the village can only do so much. The village only has so much money. So after that 5-year period, $60,000 would go to pay for that loan, and then it would be supplemented by the additional $104,000 that's being generated through the other increases. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I just wonder, just to say, figure out a way to just make that be the 72 up front, so that we know that's covered through this.
Okay.
Jim, let me ask you a question. I think it was back in 2009, there was a requirement with the consent decree from Illinois EPA that that Sauk Village develops a cross connection program. Was that ever done? relating to the water and the pipes and stuff, was that ever done, and how does it affect this, the sewer
I
program?
think that you're talking about the wellhead protection, the well protection area.
No, the cross connection program related to the wells, because there was some issue about the sanitary flow versus the wastewater flow back then, so it was adopted. It was one of the requirements before we got the loan. So that
Yes.
should be done, so.
That's separate from this.
This is separate for this?
Yes.
Okay, now you mentioned cross connection. What's the difference between cross connection and this sewer versus the cross connection and what they adopted back then?
That was a well protection survey, so that is potential contamination sources within a certain proximity to the wells. So what's been established is you can't have a business that would generate toxic waste within a certain proximity to the wells. That ordinance has been passed, so it protects the village's groundwater supply.
Okay. So now we have to develop another cross connection program for this, for the sewers.
I wouldn't define the first as a cross connection. It's a well protection. That's public water supply. Here we're talking about stormwater, wastewater, which is different.
Well, see, my issue, well, not issue, but it seems to me that we should be doing everything at one time, because the system is so old. This is a 60-plus year system. And to do sewer, and then you have to have pipes, and then all this, you know what I mean? Because it seems to me this is wasting people's money when you have a fantastic sewer system, then the pipes are not good.
Yeah, it's this is the dilemma that all communities face. Is there's a sanitary sewer system, there's a storm sewer system, there's a drinking water system, there's a transportation system. All of these are deteriorating year after year. So what a lot of communities do is they will develop capital improvement programs that address all of them. So there'll be one for the storm sewer, one for the sanitary sewer system. And they bite off these small chunks year by year. They prioritize all the repairs that need to be done, and they say, in 2019, we're going to do this for the water system, we're going to do this for the road system, and so on and so forth. The catch is you have to have the money to do all that. So the village is just squeaking by right now. So that's the problem. Do I agree that all those systems need to be addressed? Absolutely. But the difference here is, honestly, the MWRD has the village more under the gun, where they've got the carrot and the stick going on this. And so, the consequence is all development will be shut down if you don't do what the MWRD is asking you to do. It's a big consequence. We don't have anything like that on the water side right now. We don't have anything like that for the transportation system right now. But it's something that we should be thinking about, something we should be planning for, and needs to be addressed.
Well, to follow up, you said 25% of the program for the MWRD is going to be addressed, with the various amounts in there. But my, position, agreement is that we're doing 25% of the sewer. We should do 25% of the pipes, all at the same time. I mean, we don't have to get all that money from MWRD, well, whatever it is, MWRD, just to do sewer. We do 25% of the sewer. The Illinois EPA loan, do 25% of the pipes too. This is, we divide the city up in quarters. You see what I mean? So we're doing 25% of the water, 25% of the sewer, instead of fixing all this, and then you still have a water problem that is eventually has to be addressed because of the residents, because that's one of their, the mandate that's on the books. I'm just saying, why don't we take 25% of this, 25% of the water, 25% whatever else. Do all three at the same time.
But this cost is only covering the sewer mandate that we have to do. While we need to do the water stuff, we gotta figure out how to pay for it, right? So he's talking about very specific fees and increases to rates, the sewage rates that are gonna appear in people's water bills that are gonna impact everybody to cover just this. You have to come up with an approach to pay for the additional funds needed to do that. That's been the dilemma that I think your committee's supposed to be working on, right?
That is the committee, but Tim has those water rates. I think, I'm just saying, instead of attacking one item, we know we need all three, attack all three at the same time, only for 25% of the three, instead of 100%.
But is that for Jim to do? I mean, I
No,
thought Jim's
no.
mandate here was to tell us what we've got to do from an MWRD perspective and give us options for how to get there.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, but I'm asking him questions about the water rates and also the MWRD. I'm asking him, why do all this for the sewer instead of just tackling all three at one time, three portions of it at one time, you know? That's what I'm saying. It's cost effective to do all three at one time instead of doing the sewer and then next year, you know, then you have to finish, not, you want to be able to complete that, you have to go to water from, I'm saying, do 25% of each at the same time. Yeah, that's my suggestion.
I think that's a separate issue.
Yeah.
We have to address this right now. The water rates, that is something that needs to be, really come to suit and go towards the issue of water. That's a separate issue. That's what we're talking about. It's a separate cost. So I think right now that's not even on the radar. That's a mandate. I think we don't have a choice with this issue.
We didn't have a short list of other committees, but that's my suggestion. Yeah.
Thank you.
So year one, which starts in May, $2.51 per house increase, right? To just, that's for the 150 monthly fee, then
Oh, I see what you're getting at. Yes.
so just a $2.51 increase per resident, per household.
Because the first one is per 1,000 gallons.
Oh.
Yes.
Until, you know, for the last 10 to 15 years, they've been raising the sewer rates for 25% for the last 10, 15 years or so. I've been doing some research. It's been going about 25 cents a month.
The village?
Yeah. You know, for the sewer rates.
I'm not aware of that.
Yeah, they've been going up about 25% since about the last 10 years or so. And I noticed in the ordinance that we're supposed to set aside this money for the MWRD. We're supposed to set aside the funds that we're going to get from the residents.
Yes, a portion. Certainly that surcharge of $1.50 per month
Okay.
is going to pay for the MWRD improvements.
Okay.
That's going forward. What he's talking about is, if this is voted on and passed, anything coming in for that will be set aside to meet the mandate that we have at MWRD. And that's basically it's an unfunded mandate that they give us, so we have to fund it. We have to make sure that we comply to that. If not, then we cannot have basically any new developments coming in, and that'll be one of the things that they will penalize us. They won't give any new developments coming in certification to operate in the village. Now, they're both has to be done, the water and the sewer. What Jim was talking about is raising the sewer rates to comply with that, to comply with what is given to us as a mandate from IEPA and NWRD. In order to get the other part that you're talking about, the potable water, that has to also, at some point in time, which was discussed way back when this was put in, that has to be raised in order to make those improvements and to work towards Lake Michigan water. Right now, what he's addressing is this. If we want to come back at a later date to address just what it is that we have to do to get Lake Michigan water, it was addressed a couple of years ago by Mrs. Zarnik himself. And what we would have to do in being in compliance, not just the compliance to get to a certain level where we will get, be able to qualify, not just to get Lake Michigan water, you have to qualify. In order to qualify for that, there's a lot of infrastructure repairs that has to be done. That has to be budgeted, or money has to be set aside for that, and it's going to have to increase the current water rates. So right now, this is for the sewer and the things that has to be done on the sewer. The other part is going to come, we're going to have a later date, come back, and I'm sure the numbers have changed since the last 3 or 4 years that it was presented to us. What we have to do in different phases. Phase 1 probably being infrastructure repair, but I'm not for sure if it's going to be in that particular order, but that is part of getting to that point and how much that will cost. So that would be something that would be separate, but right now we're talking about sewer. So I don't want anyone to get confused that this is just for the sewer and the compliance for the sewer water in public versus private sector. I think you still have to do, I'm sure you have something that the private sector has to, you haven't gotten to that yet.
No, I haven't. It's not actually in this presentation.
Okay. So that's something that's gonna, because even in the private sector, there's gonna be some things that the homeowners gonna have to take care of. As was stated before, there's water that may be going into that system coming from a home. That has to be found out, detected, and repaired, because if not, whatever we do is still not gonna do any good. It's still gonna overwhelm the system.
Mr. Mayor, quick question. What is the minimum usage that the residents gets charged per month for water? Because I know there's a minimum, what, use a gallon?
I think it's 16, I'm trying to think, I think it's $16 minimum per month. I think it's $32, $33 per bill for the amount. That's the minimum. If you don't even use water, that's what you're gonna get charged. And then the sewer card, that's just a standard rate. And then anything over that, then you're charged for it.
Jim, I have one more question. You said that the majority of things you talked about were inspections. Now, the CIPP was some kind of lining up the pipes, so that's actually going to be done.
That would be done with the IEPA lower interest loan.
And are we going to do the whole town, or are we going to do like 25%?
25%.
Okay. See, 25% of the lining of the pipes, okay? Now, if these pipes, and I'm going by what Kevin told me, have to be replaced, well, I mean, do you know the section where they have to be lined?
For the high-risk area, we do,
Okay,
not for anything beyond that at this point.
okay, so you're gonna do 25% of high risk, just line the pipes.
Yeah, once we start doing inspections, going into the future, the next 5 years, then we'll identify roughly 25% of the system. That includes the high-risk area, but also outside of that, to line.
Okay, there is also, there's a place over in Lincoln Meadows, and you also mentioned, some kind of dinosaur or something that turns green. When I was walking down that street, it had a green color. Do you recall anything like that's been?
We weren't working in that area, so
Well, I'll show you.
we're not responsible for that.
Okay.
Let me just run through this, my last slide here. So, MWRD's program is unfunded, so that's additional costs. There's no way to avoid that. But on the positive side, it's an opportunity to increase diligence in the sanitary sewer maintenance, which is good. It will result in an improved sanitary sewer system with fewer problems. It will reduce instances of sanitary sewer overflows and basement backups. And it will ensure the sanitary sewer system capacity is available during wet weather events so that there's less flooding. No, it would just be the 25% of the system and then 50% of the manholes. Are there other questions?
Well, I want to go back to the CIPP. You said these are high-risk pipes that we're going to replace 25% of them. And my question would it be cheaper just to replace the pipe instead of putting a line in the pipe?
No. Much more expensive.
Much more expensive. And what's the life expectancy of the line?
50 years.
50 years.
Jim, are you going to share this with the actual house, please?
I absolutely can.
Are there any more questions on this particular topic from the trustees? Okay, and then I guess your next one,
So, I'm sorry, before we leave this, so you're asking for this to go on the agenda for
Well,
next Tuesday, or?
that's why I was getting into the next one. That would be what I'm thinking is going to be asked to be put on the agenda, is to review the ordinance that you have, that the numbers that he just spoke about is in that ordinance. So it's going to be asked to put that on the agenda in the ordinance that you have in your packets. So that's what is going to be asked. It'll be on the, I'll put it this way, it'll be on the agenda to be voted on next week. If you have any questions to review, I'm sure you can get in touch with Mrs. Zarnick, and that would be it. The next item is to review proposal and recommendation for the Arrowhead Park improvement. Jim, are you doing that one too?
Yes, that's
Okay,
me.
I said you're gonna sit down and do that. By the way, I just want to say that was a great presentation. Usually we don't have, you upped your game and your PowerPoint to include. I like that. More interactive. Okay.
I'm here to serve at the pleasure of the village of Sauk Village.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Okay.
Is that better?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, I can turn it up. Okay.
Okay. So, last board meeting, we had a bid opening for the improvements to Arrowhead Park. And we had, unfortunately, only one bidder. And that bidder presented a bid of $510,103.70 for the base bid. And we had an alternate bid of $700,327.20. So that's the same bidder, but just an increased scope of work. So that greatly exceeds the amount of funding that we have available through the IDNR OSLAD grant, just a bit, which is about $200,000. So it's unfortunate. We advertised this project to try to get as many contractors as we could. We personally contacted, faxed, called 13 separate contractors. These are a number of the contractors that bid on 4 other projects that Robinson was involved with the same OSLAD grant program, and we only got one bidder. So unfortunately, we're up against a deadline because the project has to be completed by the end of August, otherwise the IDNR will not give funding for the project. August seems like kind of far away, but in the timeline of this project, it's not, because by the time we award the project, by the time we get contracts executed, by the time the contractor orders the playground equipment, has it manufactured and delivered to the site and installed, we're going to be pushing up against August. And we absolutely have to have this project completed by then. So we don't have time to rebid it. So our recommendation is to accept the low bid from D&J Landscape. They're certainly a qualified contractor, that's the good news. They have done numerous other park improvements projects. We have no hesitation with recommending them for the project, but we will drastically cut the scope of the project to make sure that it falls within the budget that we have available. We're not going to be, going back to the village asking for any additional money. So we certainly don't want to lose the funding that the IDNR is providing, so we're just going to get by with what we can. We're going to speak with the contractor during the execution phase of the project and see what they could work out with us. Maybe, we can get some additional work done at a lower unit price, but we'll just have to see how that goes. No guarantees at this point. So that's the story, and so I would ask that the village award the contract at the next board meeting, and then we can go from there.
Okay, so you want this to be on the next board meeting to award the contract to D&J Landscaping?
Yes.
Okay, I do have one question. And this is something I had talked over. We have certain parameters that we have to meet in order to get the funding. And we scale down. I understand we have to scale down because we don't have the money. But can we scale down, are we able to scale down enough, first of all, to get the money, and second of all, to meet the requirements? We are able to do that.
That's a great question, Mayor, and I'm sorry I didn't address
No.
that. So the first thing we did is we called the IDNR and told them about the situation. And we asked them, can we get an extension on the project? And they said no. And we said, okay, well, we only have so much money here. Can we eliminate this? Can we eliminate this? So all these recommended scope changes have been okayed by the IDNR.
Good. So that's what to make sure. I don't want to start something and then come to find out the last minute, well, you guys didn't finish this, and we won't give you a reimbursement.
That's a great question. $206,000 for the construction.
Yeah, it was under bid a long time ago, and it was supposed to be 600,000, but all we got was 200 and something. So
Yes.
that's what happened, and they wouldn't let us. I was down last year trying to talk to someone about this particular Arrowhead grant and asked them could we get more money, and they said no. So that was last year. So this is what it is, and we have to work within that. And I just wanted to make sure. I don't want to get there to that point and then they tell us, well, you didn't complete Part D, so therefore you get nothing, even though everything else is completed. Okay.
Understood.
So this will be on the agenda also to be voted on.
So, Jim, we're gonna get a $206,000 grant for the upgrade of Arrowhead Park, but the bid is for $510,000.
No, you're not getting
Right.
600,000. You said you're getting 600,000?
No.
No.
That's.
No, that's what
She
this.
said 206.
Oh, two. I think said 600,000. Excuse me, trustee. I was just.
And then the bid was $510,000. So, where is the difference coming from in order to finish the project?
We're going to cut items out of the project.
So we only going to get 206,000 worth of improvements.
Yes.
Do they do it? Do you know?
Yes.
Any other questions? Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Next item is Director of Economic Development, Mr. Joe Wizardwadi. We're doing a review of the bids and proposals for the redevelopment of the village-owned property. Also a review of the RFP grass mowing, vacant lots, IDA grant, and review of the TIF number 4 and the final payments to Mr. Panos.
I apologize to the board, I didn't bring my PowerPoint presentation with me this evening.
Thank you.
Okay, as the board knows, we went ahead and did a request for proposals and for a redevelopment agreement for the property, which was formerly the laundromat on Sauk Trail. We received 2 bids on that, and we went through a process this last week where we scored each of the bids. Village Treasurer Judith Sutphin and I both did that on Friday, which is why this was not included in your packet then. I was typing this up as recent as this evening, so I just finished the recommendation memorandum to the board. It goes over the criteria that we use for scoring each of the bids, and there's a summary of the scoring provided in there, and I'll kind of just go over the composite scores. First Metropolitan had a bid price of $37.5. Their composite score was 79.6 out of 100. Mr. Abazir had a bid of $40,000, and his composite score was 84.9 out of 100. It's our recommendation to the board that the board proceed with the bid that was submitted by Mr. Abazir for the sale of the property for $40,000. In his proposal, he plans no less than $55,000 worth of improvements, in addition to the village board approving a resolution supporting a Class 8 property tax designation on the parcels as soon as possible for that. So our recommendation is to move forward with that bid.
Okay, you're asking that the board move forward to grant the sale of the property to Mr.
Right, what we would want is an authorization for the mayor to enter into a sales agreement with Mr. Nabil Abazir.
Okay, is the Class B a contingent, or is it just something that he would apply for after he buys the property?
The resolution supporting the Class 8 would be approved by the board,
Right, I
and
mean,
then he would still have to file the
that would be after
application
though.
after he closes. Yes,
So that'd be something that would come before the board in addition,
correct. That would
at a
probably
later
be
date.
2 weeks from next week.
Okay.
Next
So you're asking that to be put on the agenda to be voted on next week also?
correct.
Thank you. Any questions about this particular item? Anyone have any questions?
Yes, and I'd be happy to share that information with you offline. I can't disclose it for a matter of privacy. Until the board actually awards the information, I can't properly disclose that. But I'd be happy to share all of that with the board, outside of a public meeting.
Okay. Next item? RFP grass mowing?
Yeah, the next item, as the mayor announced last week, the village was awarded a $75,000 grant for property maintenance from the Illinois Illinois Housing Development Authority. We received this grant back in, I believe, 2014. And this was for grass mowing and maintenance of abandoned properties. In our grant application, we took a different approach to how we're going to handle this because limited staff and resources that we do have. So at this time, we have village staff that are going out and assessing the proposed homes to make sure that they are in compliance with the requirements of the grant application. So we're doing all of our preliminary due diligence before we get into actually performing the work that's going to be proposed. The village can't mow grass on vacant homes that are occupied. I know that sounds odd, but if they're illegally occupied, we're not able to perform the services on that for reimbursement. So we're ensuring that all of that is in compliance. So any of those homes that may be illegally occupied, we will not move forward on those properties, but we'll continue on that for the mowing of the grass. With the request for proposals, we have a schedule that would be followed on a every other week basis, ensuring that the fronts and the backs of the properties are actually completed. Any garbage and debris is actually picked up and relocated to where it can be picked up and cleaned up, because there's a lot of garbage out there and it needs to be cleaned up. This is kind of off, but we will be getting into this later, another RFP for removal of trees and shrubs in some of the vacant homes as well. And then there will be another, maybe an RFQ for that, for board up service for securing some of the unsecured abandoned homes as well. So that'll be coming as part of this grant as this develops. We do have a meeting with the legal department from Illinois Housing Development Authority next week, and we'll be discussing the requirements of reimbursement for this grant. I brought something to the mayor that kind of was interesting. So the proceeds from the sale of the property that we have could technically fund the upfront expense for this grant, because you may or may not be familiar with the way that the grant functions. It's done on a reimbursement basis, so the village is paying the money out and getting reimbursed on the back end. Trustee Tates and I worked together on putting this together in the initial stages of all of this. So, I appreciate the work that Trustee Tates put into this as well.
Will this work be done by our current Public Works Department, or probably some help?
No, this would actually be the request for proposals for the grass mowing. We would be seeking bids for the work to be performed. They will have to sign a confidentiality agreement, because we're going to be giving them information on vacant homes. So they have to, no disclosure agreement would have to be signed by them before they would give that information as well. And that information would be, they have to provide how much it's going to cost for each mowing on an ongoing basis, or for the whole term. If they want to just bid it out as a single bid.
How quickly are you talking about getting started?
Well, the RFP was included in your packets, I believe, wasn't it?
Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, but the schedule's on the back of that for the mowing. But the RFP was included in there. It's a draft form at this point, so that will be finalized for board meeting. If there's anything that needs to be corrected or amended, please let me know.
Joe, last time this grant was around, there were so many houses out there, and the vegetation was so thick that they needed professionals to come in there, and that ate up a lot of the cost of the grant. So, I wonder if 75,000 enough, because the way some of those houses looked, they were really in bad condition with just vegetation, and, some of the, I guess vendors that came out and looked at it, and oh, wow, we can do it with us,
Well, what we're
talking about.
you're right. You're right, and that's why we're putting it out for bid. For professional service to come in and actually take care of these on an ongoing basis. There's been actually a lot of interest already, and we're telling them it's not ready yet. We're not ready to move forward with the RFP, because obviously that would be required approval by the board before we let that. And then, once they bid on it, we're going to make sure that they have their requirements, licenses, insurance, all of that has to be in place before we can accept the bid.
So they can't bid on it. When are the bids going to start?
Well, once the RFP is out, it'll be, I believe it's specified, and don't pay attention to the September date.
September date?
No, don't pay attention to that date.
It's the same,
Yeah.
September.
So the first cut is in May, so.
Yeah, so
It's out back.
the intention is to have it out as soon as the board puts it out next week, and then we would have a bid opening in 2 weeks.
And since this is a reimbursable grant, where are we going to get the money to pay up front?
Well, luckily, we're hopefully selling a piece of property, so that'll at least fund a portion of that, and then as we get reimbursed on that, we'll be able to provide additional payouts on that.
So you're asking, do you have the board to vote on moving forward with RFP for next week, correct?
Correct, that's correct.
Okay.
And again, like I said, we'll have additional ones coming out in short order for the board up and for the removal of trees and shrubs. Same grant.
That includes the 75,000?
Yes. In fact, Illinois Housing Development Authority, I spoke to them on ways we can improve our score, which they thought was odd, because normally people call that get denied for those. But I wanted to find out, was there anything that we didn't score well on? And she said we submitted a very good app, so that was encouraging. The other thing she said is, well, can you guys handle $250,000? I said, yeah. And she goes, well, next time apply for the 250. If you apply for more than the 75, you have to request a waiver. They will waive that requirement for us on the next round, she said.
Any more questions? Okay. This will be on the agenda next week also.
And the next item I have for you this evening is the progress and final payment to Mr. Ted Panos. I put a spreadsheet which kind of illustrates the original village reimbursement and then the amount that's actually due. You'll notice that that amount is less. The reason why it is less is because Mr. Panos went with a different individual who did the painting work, so that work is not going to be included in here as that individual was a family member, which he saved money, good for him, and good for us because now we don't have to pay it out. So that was a little bit of savings to us. He did complete the project. The Community Development Department did go out and verify that that was complete. We did receive lien waivers from the contractors that performed the work. Those are all included in your packets, as is a copy of the redevelopment agreement that was approved by the board back in whenever it was approved. September. So the amount that's requested for reimbursement would be $67,010.59 versus the $71,385.59. Right on the right-hand side of that. Right there. Yeah. And this should also reflect on the accounts payable as well, but we're going to be voting on since it's a progress and final payment on a TIF project, I recommend that it be voted on as a separate motion as well.
So you want this on the agenda as well?
Yes.
You voted on separately with that amount?
That's correct.
No, I mean, what you're saying is going to be separate, but I mean, if the trustees would like to have all these on consent agenda, you can ask again if that's, I'll put this, everyone, the items that we talked about, that's everything from today so far with Jim Zarnick and the items that were brought up by Mr. Wisdom, do you want those on the agenda under consent, or you want them separate? I'll ask the board. Separate? All we need is one person. Okay, so therefore it's going to be separate.
And that was included.
So I do have a question before we move on, sorry, just to follow up on the consent agenda versus individual items. Trustee Brewer, was anybody else wanting it separated out? Or
Trustee,
I'm just wondering if there's like one or two items we can separate out versus keep other things on the consent agenda, just to minimize how many votes we're taking? Out of curiosity. Or is it all?
but if it's usually all or nothing.
Right.
So if it's one person says no, then it won't be a consent agenda.
Make sure it's not.
As far as compliance,
Yes.
there's going to be I'm sorry.
Okay, here.
Who in the village is going to?
What happened to the microphone?
The trustee was asking if, who's going to actually be doing the monitoring of the performance of the contractors, and village staff will be doing that. But the community development will be doing, not public works.
We're talking about as far as the work in Mr. Panels?
No, we're talking specifically, we're going back on the agenda again, so to the grass lawn.
Oh, the grass mowing, yeah, okay, yeah. Okay. All right, any other questions? All right, thank you very much. Last item is a review of the agreement for the human resource consultant between the village and Dr. Alicia Straw. I will pass out the Oh, okay. No, one page. This is, you can look at this, self-explanatory. It says the descriptions of services. Now, we'll be voting on this next week. The agreements, what her description of services are, the billing rate, and also the additional terms, and the amount of hours. That'll be the maximum amount of hours per week, unless there's something that happens greatly that we may have to do, but I don't see anything that, if you can't do it Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, then we'll just wait until Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday come out. So this will be for HR only. So this will be on the agenda also next week to be voted on.
Question?
Yes.
How do we come up with the number of hours?
Basically, is what they're doing, what she's doing now. Usually it's 12. The reason why it says 17, not to exceed. Some months you have 5 weeks. So that there's a Monday and Tuesday in there, so that could be an additional amount, but it's not to exceed 17. So I'm going to keep it at, right now I don't see anything over 12.
Okay, to follow up on that then.
Sure.
Second,
Mike?
sorry, I thought my mouth was pretty loud normally. The second from last section, if you will, under number 3, is talking about a maximum approved budget. Is that a monthly budget then? So should we amend that to say maximum monthly budget?
The maximum budget approved is 6,000, is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yes, that's the max.
So
Per
we should
month,
amend
yes.
that to
That
say
would be, but it's
maximum
not-
monthly
Yes,
budget.
that's the max. Okay,
I'm asking for that to be amended though, to say
Okay,
that.
we can put that in, that's no problem.
You said the maximum monthly budget approved is $6K?
Yes,
I see that there. $6K a month?
that's maximum.
17?
Yeah, it's the 17 hours times $85 an hour.
So it's all about
That's the problem that you would have. You would be, that's probably where that would go over the amount. Because if you have 12, which is 48, and then if you have Monday and Tuesday in the following 5th week, then that right there will push that over a certain amount. So it's not going to exceed that amount of money. And right now I'm looking at, even looking at that amount, I'm looking at 12 hours a week.
So the statement of work is at March 26th.
Yes.
Should that be amended to state?
Yes, it's going to be amended to state, after this is approved, so it'll be, what is next week? The date's the 3rd, so the 10th? Yes. That'll be, that, and then you'll have that in your packet by next week, the date. So it would have to be after Tuesday of next week.
And the bottom in the last paragraph, it said, the service can equally be resolved by the mayor. Should that be with the consent of the board, or you just?
I mean, if it's, quite naturally, I'm going to bring it to the board. If it's something that is not, I don't need, or whatever the case may be, it would be my decision to do that, and I, yes, definitely would bring it to the board. Or if Dr. Strauber herself decides to, that she doesn't work here anymore, then that would be her decision also.
So she's no longer working for the Owens Group?
No, this is not the Orange Group. This is a contract for just the village, the Sauk Village.
So, she's not working for the Orange Group, but she's gonna enter to, well, we are going to enter into a contract with her for.
This is a statement of work, so it's, I mean, you-
So we
this is-
enter into a state, what,
Mhm.
is that a contract or what is this? I have never heard of a statement of whatever this is.
it's an agreement. I guess you would, if you sign it, it would be a contract, so yeah.
Okay, this will be a prime contract that we're gonna try to enter into. Okay.
It's not an employment contract, but an understanding that the premise of Dr. Strauber's part-time consulting work with the village of Sauk Village. That's in the first paragraph. Okay.
Mr. Mayor,
yes.
is this in addition to we're doing the negotiations?
Yes, this is separate. Negotiations are separate. And we'll be getting a update pretty soon on the status of negotiations. So that'll be done in executive session, but that'll be something that'll be coming up as soon as we get through with all the, it's called TAs, temporary agreement. Then in executive session, it'll be explained.
So we're gonna pay her $85 an hour for negotiation?
Excuse me.
I'm sorry. We're gonna pay her $85 an hour for negotiation, and then $85
Yes.
an hour for HR services?
Yes.
So HR services be 17 hours a week?
No, it says maximum not to exceed.
Not to exceed?
Yeah, absolutely. Right now, she does 12 hours.
Okay, 17 hours for HR. Right?
No, and you keep saying that.
Not to exceed 17 hours?
That's what I'm saying,
Okay,
so,
for HR. But I'm asking you, is these two separate things?
Yes,
We
it
paying
is.
her, how many hours is she working for negotiations?
that's varies. That's varies by what's needed. I mean, I've seen them sitting here for 6, 7 hours. As a
And
matter of fact, they sat in here the other day for 6 hours, so
when
I don't know how often they do that. I'm here, but I'm just saying that I can't give you a timetable on that part because it depends on them and the union. So if the union wants to meet for whatever, that depends. That's why I went that route because it's cheaper than to go with a lawyer coming in here every other day or whatever at $165 an hour.
So we don't have an end date for the negotiations? Do we have an end date?
I wish I did. I mean, they're negotiating.
I mean, don't we have, supposed to have a contract in place by a certain
The
date or something?
contract is over in April, Does that mean they're gonna be done? I doubt it. because there's too many things that we're trying to accomplish. So it's gonna last, like I said before, this contract is going to be costly, because there's so many things that is, right now we're in the impasse. So it's gonna take a while to do this contract, because there's a lot of things that are in there that we need to negotiate on.
I know looking at some of the previous accounts payables, it looks like several of her invoices have been in the neighborhood of 15 hours a week for the negotiations.
Negotiations, yeah, that's negotiations for you. That's why I said before, in the beginning of this negotiation with this particular bargaining unit is going to be very costly for the village. Because there's a lot of things negotiations don't want to budge or whatever, so back and forth. Because we're changing, a lot of things that are being changed and they're asked to negotiate on, so that's why I kept taking it.
So we're paying her $170 an hour, actually.
No,
But no, I finished my question before y'all said, Negotiations are $85 an hour. We don't have an end date for it. And she's gonna exceed HR services that don't exceed 17 hours a week for $85 too.
So 17 hours a week for HR, 15 is an average for negotiations, that's still less than 40 hours a week at $85 an hour.
So like I said, 170. Okay.
No, it's not 100.
it's not 170.
Okay. That's two different jobs, both of them combined is $170.
No, it's not.
I didn't say that. I said.
Okay, first of all,
$170.
trustee, we're not gonna sit here and debate like that.
They're debating. I'm not.
Okay,
I'm
we're not
saying
gonna sit here and
what you
do
just
that.
told me.
But
I'm
the
just saying
answer
that.
is that this is the excuse me, are we disturbing you?
You don't want to have.
No, well, when we're having a meeting here, and we don't need that. I'm sorry, Ms. Washington, we do not need that. Jumping up and down in the back in the audience, that's not, like I said before, I'm gonna respect you, but I'm gonna demand respect also. We're having a conversation is what the committee meeting is for.
I know what it's for, I used to sit up there.
Okay, well then you also know, just you set up here, that in the audience, we don't look for people to comment
It's been
until
happening.
time comes for public comment. There's a time for public comment. This is not the time.
I'm waiting.
Could you please wait a little differently? Thank you. Trustee, I was just trying to say that this is a contract, we can either vote it up or down. It's self-explanatory, but don't read into more than what it is. He's not getting paid $170 an hour for one thing. This is a combination of both. We need both. If we had the lawyers, just add that on to 170 per hour per lawyer for just negotiations. For just negotiations. And like I said before, it's gonna be a lot of hours. This is not gonna be a done deal real quickly. I wish it would be, but this particular negotiation is gonna be rather lengthy because there's a lot of things involved. That's why I took this path to go this way rather than have our lawyers come. Now, the lawyers will get involved once they get through with the TAs, which would be the temporary agreements between both parties. Then the lawyers will look it over to make sure that everything is done. And that's going to cost us a lot less than being here every day that they decide they want to come in and sit here all day long.
I understand that, Mr. Mayor, and I do believe that's what I said, before I was cut off. But
Cut off by
I
who?
understand.
Who'd you cut off by?
I understand what you're trying to do, but there has been some issues. Well, we'll get to that later. But
Get to what? I mean, we're talking about this now. What's to get to?
we taking her on as a consultant since she has been let go by the Owens Group. And as I understand it, page 9 of the employee's contract says that she couldn't work for the village because there's a conflict of interest. Now you're telling us that we're gonna take her on when you specifically have always told us that she's not a Sauk Village employee, but she has always been on accounts payable, and we've been paying her. So now since she's been let go by the Owens Group, and we have been paying her and the Owens Group, now we gotta pay her by herself for a combination of negotiations and HR service that don't exceed 17 hours. It seems to me there's something that's, and I'm gonna say this again, there seems to be some kind of, excuse the expression, but collusion going on here, because the HR person was working for Owens, we were paying Owens for HR services, and now we're paying Strutter at the same time for HR consulting. That was a conflict of interest, and now that she's let go by the Owens Group because they found out that she was submitting invoices to Sauk Village, now you're telling us that we're gonna pick her up when something wasn't right about the whole employment relationship with Dr. Strutter. Something is not right with this.
Next Tuesday, this will be on the agenda to be voted on. And you can vote it yes or no. As far as them, excuse me, I'm not going to ask this again. I'm asking the audience to please respect what's going on, and that's a meeting in progress. Please respect that. I'm asking that, to respect the meeting that's going on in progress. As far as that's concerned, if you want to have the lawyers to do it, because the lawyers will definitely charge you more. Last contract, I was on the board, and the lawyers, when we got through paying the lawyers, it was almost $250,000 for just one negotiation. That's when we were getting bills at $40,000, $50,000 a month. So it'll be on the agenda. If you have any other questions, quite naturally, you can ask them. If you have questions for Dr. Strauss, if she's here, you can go talk to her if you have some other questions. So it'll be on the agenda. I'm not going to debate it back and forth. I presented what the scope of work will be, and it's not an employment, it's a consultant. Just like the lawyers are not employees of the village. They're consultants of the village. Same issue.
Mr. Mayor, I just have a quick question. On the description of services, it says oversee HR administration and managing HR staff will be contracted to her. Is she getting staff? Managing HR staff?
No, she's not getting staff. If she decides that she wants to hire somebody to help her, that's her. If she wants to get someone, that comes out of her pocket, not out of ours.
Okay,
So if she wants to get somebody that she wants to help her do whatever she needs to help done, that'll be up to her. So if she brings a person in for a secretary or whatever, I don't know, to do whatever that they need to be done, that would be out of her cost.
I just wanted to.
Yeah, that's all that is. Okay. It'll be on the agenda for next week. Okay. Public comment. All questions and comments will be directed to the mayor. Each speaker may comment on any matter pertaining to the business of Sauk Village. Each speaker is allowed one opportunity to speak for up to 3 minutes and may not engage in debate. Please state your name when you step up to the mic.
Judy Cast here. Because I have only 3 minutes, I'm going to skip the niceties. Approximately 4 months ago, Mr. Mayor, I came up here and I asked about HR Strouder's background, her resume, all sorts of things about her, and you told me it would not be a problem. You would get that to me. I have not had a phone call. I have no mail. Nobody called me to say the information is here. I still don't know what the information is. but I did receive some information elsewhere, and it's amazing to me. You had Jim Zarnik up here talking and giving a brilliant talk, as well as Joe Rizzawati, and both of them indicated Sauk Village doesn't have the money. Well, I agree. Therefore, I don't understand why we had an HR lady in 1 month collect $6,148.
Ooh, nice job.
Oh, well, we moved down a few months,
job, I like that.
and the next one was $9,870. And I'm sorry, I don't care what you got before or after your name. We're in Sauk Village, we're not in, Hollywood or anything. We don't have that kind of money. You said in the campaign that we did not need an administrator, we did not need these extra people, that you were going to retire and you would be working at the village on a daily basis. We didn't need all this extra stuff with all this high cost. I've read paperwork after paperwork that was submitted, and Ms. Strouder has called the lawyers. She's had meetings with the lawyers, back and forth. So the lawyers are still charging us while she's charging us. And there is no way in hell, I don't care how many paychecks you get, that anybody in Sauk Village should be getting $9,870 for 1 month. And all of you up there were voted in by the people, with the exception of one. And I'm telling you, think twice before making a vote to spend this kind of money. 12 hours? No. She was supposed to be on 12 hours when she got this.
I just have one thing to say. The last three accounts payable. It's amazing how no one really looked at those accounts payable, because the last three accounts payable, we paid the lawyers $100,000 from 2016 and early 2017. $59,000 for 1 month back in 2016, and the early part of 2017, $29,000 and $23,000 concurrently in each one of the accounts payable. But I didn't hear anything about that. But we're talking about $6,000. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Next.
My name is Linda Washington. First of all, I just want to say this is just a travesty. And I'm speaking on behalf of Sauk Village for Informative Dialogue, residents of Sauk Village. I talked with trustees last week, and I thought it was very inappropriate that the mayor turned the lights out on me in the village hall while I was talking to trustee Grant that's over finances about a decision to give the new treasurer $8,000 in addition to her salary, which was the $8,000 that you all took from Mohan because we didn't have the money to pay him. But yet you found that $8,000 to give her, and she's new on board. I don't understand that. So as a resident, while I'm talking to a trustee that have kiosks to the building and access to the building, I think it was disrespectful to him as an elected official talking to a resident to shut me off and shut the lights off while we're not having a dialogue about the finances of the village. I thought that was very rude. And then to demand so much respect when you talking, you don't want nobody to talk, clap, say nothing. But for years, I've been here for 8 years, and people have been irate, talking, laughing, that's a shame, coming up in the mayor's face, telling him about it and everything else. But now, if somebody just say a word of clapping because they agree on something, you can't stop nobody from clapping. You're certainly not going to stop me from clapping, and nobody going to stop me from saying nothing that I want to say. I am not afraid of nobody up in here, and I'm going to say what the residents have a concern about, and I will scream it from all 4 mouths of this village. I've already been talking to the pastors. It is a travesty that you all are bullying people, trying to make elected officials feel bad about asking questions, and that's what they was elected to do. Bernie's Brewer trustee, keep on asking the questions that you asked me, because I remember when you sat out here, your number one thing was y'all spending money like it's y'all on personal ATM. Where the money at? Y'all campaigning this year. Where the millions of dollars going? What they doing with the money? What they plans for the mayor? Let's just keep it 100. Now you sitting up there, you got to FOIA everything you want. Everything that's going on right now was the same thing that was going on when David Hanks sat in that chair, and when Lewis Tower sat in that chair, and when we had J.W. Fairman here with Reed, the former mayor of Elgin. They negotiated the contract. The attorneys did not negotiate the contract. I'm recording what I'm saying, and I've been texting former elected officials that was here with the previous administration, and they're giving me perfect information. No, they did not. And to pay this woman $85 an hour, school teachers, subs make $120 a day. Walk across the street. How can you pay somebody $85 an hour when a certified school teacher only makes $120 a day coming fresh out of college? But you know, it's a friendship thing. And I heard the economic development say somebody saved money up here at the restaurant because his family is paying. Well, I know you're used to doing things for pleasurism and nepotism for friends and family, but the bottom line is Sauk Village has no money. We are broke, and I'm going to ask the trustees again to stop voting for friendship and vote for the residents. 10 months is coming quick.
Harvey. I would say one thing too. It won't take no bigger than 2 or 3 minutes for me to say what I have to say. What I have to say, the same thing you can't say at the end. We voted y'all in, and we can't vote y'all out.
Stronger. Find out. Reminder.
My name is Nathan Griffin. I live in 22317 Brookwood, Sauk.
Talking to
My
Mike.
question is, Mayor.
Mr. Griffin, talking to Mike, please. I'm sorry.
My question is, Mayor, I would like to know, this has been an ongoing thing for quite a while concerning water and sewer. And I'd just like to ask you, what do we have to do in order to get or obtain Lake Michigan water? Now this has been going on for quite some time. And have we tried to obtain information from other villages that have Lake Michigan water? And I have one more question.
Oh, go ahead.
And why can't we compare prices? If we do get Lake Michigan water, why can't we compare prices concerning the sewer system and the water? Now, I know money is a big factor.
Is that it? Okay. As far as Lake Michigan water, I did put a trustee on it. She's still gathering information. Because yes, she will have to increase rates, as we already know, in order to get it, because there's a lot of things to be done, and the money that we're getting in now is not going to be enough to make that happen. And yes, sir, when it gets to that point, absolutely, we will compare prices. And because when you go out to get Lake Michigan water from whatever village that you go to, you quite naturally, you're buying it. And once you buy Lake Michigan water and cap the wells, you can't go back. So yes, you're gonna have to make sure your prices are gonna be comparable. It's gonna be voted on by the board to raise the rates to make it to whatever it's gonna be. And just so you know, once we secure Lake Michigan water and it starts coming, there's a meter that will be at the end of town. Wherever it's gonna be, I don't know. But if we have a main break or whatever, it's still going to go like it is in your house and your toilets are flowing. So yes, it's going to be something that's going to be very, very competitive. We have to go out and look at it. To tell you the truth, the actual buying of the water is not that expensive. The expense comes with the infrastructure repairs that have to be done to make sure that we're in compliance. In order to get we have to petition IDNR. That's the Illinois Department of Environmental Protection Agency. They have to, first of all, look and make sure that we've done our due diligence, and then we have to make sure that where we're buying from can handle what we get. And then there's going to be a lot of other things. Wherever we get the water from, probably going to ask for a lot of safeguards, because of what's going on now in the different municipalities. There's municipalities that have defaulted on their payments and they're not able to turn them off due to health reasons. So those have been some of the safeguards, and we're going to the last one in, and it's going to be the one that's going to pay the most. And that's a shame, but that's the truth. That's what.
Excuse me. If we do get Lake Michigan water, do we have to get it through another village, or we can get it directly from?
No, but we don't have this. Lake Michigan is not right here, so we have to buy it through another distributor.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. We'll start with comments from the Board of Trustees. We'll start with Bernice Brewer.
Mr. Mayor, I'm going to pass out a statement I would like to be included in today's minutes that discuss the $8,000 advance that we gave to the treasurer last week. I'm presenting this following statement so it may be included in the minutes for April 3rd, 2018. On March 27th, the board approved an $8,000 increase to the treasurer's salary. The increase was retroactive to January 24, 2018. And approximately 2 months ago, the finance director's salary was decreased by $8,500. According to section 3.1-50-5 of the municipal code, 65 ILCS 5-3-150-5. The salaries are fixed by the annual appropriations budget and ordinance and should not be increased or diminished during that term. The treasurer and finance salaries were fixed and included in the budget. The adjustment of the treasurer and finance salary is a clear violation of the Illinois state statute. The treasurer's salary was increased. The finance director's salary was diminished within appropriate budget year, that's meaning this year. I am submitting this statement to express my concern regarding the board's legal liability and blatant disregard for the Illinois state statute by passing ordinance 18-009. And the information I got is a copy of the Illinois state statute that says that we shouldn't increase or decrease anybody's salary within that budget year. And also there's a Sauk Village Code that says that the board is supposed to be, has the authority to set and adjust from time to time, but it has to be within the budget year. I'm saying that the trustees should be very cautious with what they're doing because you violate Illinois state statutes. Even though the attorney was here last week, he said that we have we are covered, but how many things can you cover when you actually violate the Illinois state statute? My second thing is that the resident gave me this. There's a copy of all the invoices that Dr. Straughter submitted. Excuse me. And here's a package that I would like you guys to look at before you vote next week. How we were paying Dr. Straughter in the Owens Group 2 for HR services. There was no at-will contract. It's not unreal, it's real. And also it enclosed a copy of the current employee handbook, which said there's a conflict of interest arising because she's acted as a consultant with the Owens Group. But while she was being with the Owens Group, we were paying her and paying the Owens Group too. That's a direct direct conflict of interest. And as you go through the invoices, you'll see we were paying for her for services that had nothing to do with HR, like talking to the mayor's wife, her birthday party, going to watch the kids over at the community center. None of that has to do anything with HR services. Now the mayor has asked us to put her on board when he has specifically said she's not a Sauk Village resident, but now we're going to hire her as a Sauk Village resident. I think this is a slap in our face, and it's just not right. And the resident gave me this stuff. She feels that this issue should be taken to the Illinois Attorney General, and it's a clear case of collusion and fraud. Because somebody knew that she should have been paid. The Orange Group, I called the Orange Group, and they said that they cut their ties on March 31st. Now all of a sudden, we picking her up, but we've been paying her anyway. So it doesn't make any sense to pick her up now. She's an employee, she's still here, and she's being employed by a Sauk Village resident. We have been paying her big time, as one of the residents are saying. So I'm just saying, at what point did she become a Sauk Village resident? And who knew about it? We were paying her all the time. And it seems like to me, whoever knew we were paying her all the time should do something about it. And then this particular resident wants to send it to the Attorney General, but I said we should send it to the lawyer first. If you look through the invoices, some of these are signed by the mayor, so he's aware of what was going on during that time. And I think it's truly unfair to be spending our money like this, because HR services were ended of July 2017. She was paid for HR consultant every month after that, with no contract, not approved by the board. She was just here, getting paid. So to me, there's something wrong with the whole scenario, and I can't explain it to you.
Yep.
So the resident gave me that. I can't tell you what to do, but I appreciate the information, and I still think it's a conflict of interest, because I really don't know how this could happen. So I would like the trustees to take a look at all this stuff before you vote on this stuff next week. And you see, she spent more time with Mary Clark than she did with the mayor. And that's the end of my speech, because I think that trustees should be aware, and they should do their own research and find out what evidence they established for. Just because the mayor wants something don't mean we need to do it. You know, there's rules and guidelines that we need to follow. You know, I want a Mercedes, but I know I can't afford it. So that's the end of my report.
First of all,
Word up, everybody.
Ms. Mayor, I know you're finna,
She is the right last
give
name.
me a whole bunch of grief.
I'm not gonna,
I'm just giving you what they gave me.
trustee, you talked for 10 minutes. I didn't say anything. Okay, thank you. You talked for 10 minutes. I didn't say anything. You said you were through. Are you through?
No. I mean, there's no comment needed.
Are you through? Are you? You're not gonna run me. Are you through? Are you through, trustee? Trustee, are you?
It's not wrong. Something's wrong with the way her employment relationship with Sauk Village. Something is wrong with the whole thing. And for us to continue on with her after she's been fired by the Orange Group, something is wrong with that. Why would the Orange Group continually let her go if something wasn't right? You know, if everything's overboard. Something's not right with that. Now I'm finished.
First of all, she's not a Sauk Village resident. Because you said that 3 times, that she was a Sauk Village resident. Pardon me? So that's wrong, first of all. And it's very ironic. I have a problem. That's why you put it before the board, so it can be voted on by the board. But you were also told that you're disseminating information that I saw in this packet, which was explained to you last week in closed session. Now you're disseminating this, and they told you at that time that was untrue, but now you put it out there. You put it out there yourself. So as was told to you before, you were working on your own recognizance, as far as you won't be working under the umbrella, you won't be covered under the village when you start doing this that you put out here about Judith Sutherland. So, and that was brought to you in closed session, but that's up to you. You put it out there. And I'm sorry. I asked you where you through. And I respected every time, trustee, I respected every time that you talk. Why are you still talking?
Well, why are you still talking?
Because I have the floor. I have the floor.
I had this information before it was given to closed session. Some other trustee brought it.
You know what? I'm going to do this, and I haven't done this, and I'm not going to continue to go through this back and forth. I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
No, I got
I'll ask for a motion to adjourn. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll? Yeah, Burgess moved and trustee Tate second.
Say no.
Yeah, I want to vote. Yeah, if I do, I want to vote.
Brewer,
Here, yes.
Grant,
Yes.
Jones, Tate,
Yes.
Todd,
Yes.
Zupan. Yes.
Motion is carried. If anyone would like to stay after and speak with any of the trustees, they'll be here for a minute. If you want to speak with me after the meeting, we'll be here for a minute. So if you would like to come up and talk or whatever, at this particular